Alright, what is up? Welcome back to another video. Today's video we're going to be doing a tier list because before the end of last year I asked you what your favorite camera of 2024 was, and I have here the results. Roughly about 55 cameras. There were some people that had duplicate answers, but I put together this little list and we're going to go through it, talk about why I'm putting things the way they are. Let's start talking about the categories themselves. Starting off, we have S tier, self-explanatory, but these are great cameras in my mind. Maybe one or two things wrong with them, but overall, very good. A tier, good cameras. Nothing really too crazy, nothing to complain about too much. Good cameras, but there's a few things that keep them from that S category. F tier, not good cameras. Perfectly fine, usable, but like just not good. Kind of a great, good, not good. Then we have overrated cameras. I think maybe get a little bit too much praise. Overhated cameras that are a little bit overlooked for one reason or another, but deserve a little bit more credit either from myself or from others. And then large format cameras, because truthfully I know nothing about them, and thank you to everybody who submitted large format cameras as your favorite camera. I just am not an authority on the matter, so I put them in one category and I will put them there and just say that they look cool because they do. So let us begin with the list. Starting off strong, we have the Bronica 645 rangefinder system. I'm going to put this in not good camera because I think that there's some reliability concerns with them. Parts are hard to come by, and the interchangeable lens I feel like makes it a bit of a bigger camera than other options out there in the same format. Holga 120, that's an A camera. A lot of people suggested this as their camera. Very affordable, easy enough to use, accessible, all of these things. It's a good camera. The Nikon F2, overrated. That's a personal opinion, but I don't think it's like as good or better than other cameras that are out there. I think there's better systems out there that Nikon even has made, which we'll get into in a little bit. It's a good camera, very good even, but just a little bit overrated in my humble opinion. The Nikon F is a very good camera, and despite its long history of being a professional system, doesn't really get all of the hype that the F2 gets, which is why it's in the A category here. The Fuji GA-W645Z or whatever is in the A category for a lot of reasons. Yes, they're a little bit more expensive, which is why it's not in the S category, but I do think it's very compact and it very much fits that form of a travel anywhere kind of 645 rangefinder system, which is why it's an A. The Bronica SQ, I'm going to put in A. They're pretty cool looking, good little camera. More affordable Hasselblad, something kind of like that, but very different in a lot of other ways. The Nikon FM2N, I'm going to put that in S because I think it is one of the better cameras that Nikon's produced. It is still very affordable. The only issue is the titanium shutter and that magnetism that it has for people just poking their finger through the shutter blades. Beyond that though, it is a fantastic system. S tier camera for sure. Mamiya C330, one of my personal favorites, but I'm going to have to put it in A tier. It's a great camera, very reliable, interchangeable lenses, super nice. It is just a little bit big, and finding parts for him is very difficult. So otherwise it would be an S tier, but I'm just going to put it in A tier. I don't want to show too much favoritism here. Speaking of which, the Nikon F3, another one of my favorites. And I want to put it in S tier because I think it is an S tier camera, but I am going to put it in overrated right next to the F2. I think that's fair. As much as I love the F3, I think, sometimes it's not the perfect camera for every situation, but it is a very, 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 very good camera. Personal favorite of mine. It's a personal S tier camera, but I would just say for the sake of the list, we'll just keep it in overrated, even though it hurts. It's fair. It's a fair thing to do. No, I'm going to put it in A. I'm going to put it in A because I think that it delivers on what it is overrated. But I do still think like the price and some of the reliability concerns and the repairability of it it keeps it out of S, but I'm going to put it in A. I do think it's like bordering on overrated, but I do think it backs it up for the most part. I think. The Leica Mini Zoom, overrated. It's a point and shoot with the zoom lens with a Leica badge on it. you know, maybe the optics are phenomenal, whatever. The person that submitted this got it at a flea market, so I hope they got it for a great deal. I just see something like this and it's just like, it's a point and shoot, which is fine, nothing wrong with that, but like, it's not $200 worth, which is what they're going for online. So a little overrated just because the Leica badge. Minolta X700, that's an A-tier camera as well. There are some electronic concerns, obviously, but when you get that taken care of, it is a great camera. Very lightweight plastic body, but also you have access to the Minolta lens series, which is very affordable and really high quality stuff. Moving on, the Minolta X370. I'm gonna put that in overhated because that's one of those cameras that I talk about on this channel a lot. A lot of the issues I have with it are kind of more to do with my inability to repair them properly. There are some plastic components that should be metal that break under high tension and whatnot, but they're still very capable cameras, very good. The Leica M2, I don't know much about. I'm more familiar with the M3 if I'm honest. So I'm just gonna put it in A because I'm assuming it's probably a pretty good camera. Don't wanna ruffle feathers. The Rolleiflex 2.8, I'm gonna put that in S because it's a very fast Rolleiflex. In fact, it's one of the faster ones. It looks fantastic, incredibly small. It's a little bit pricier if I recall, but I think for the most part, it's a really, really good system and you get what you pay for out of it. The Minolta XGM, overhated for the same reasons as the X370. The Pentax Auto 110, that's a S tier camera. That is an elite camera. If you want to shoot 110 film, the Pentax Auto 110 is the beginning and the end of that discussion in my humble opinion. Interchangeable lenses, so much fun to use, super easy, fantastic. Praktica MTLB, I think, or 5 MTLB, something like that. That's a bad camera. Normally I would put that in something like an overhated, but I think just the functions of it are not good. There are more affordable options out there that provide the same experience of a Praktica, but the Praktica has the benefit of the advanced wind feeling like you're chewing on gravel. The leather is way too smooth and oddly sticky at times. The bottom plate is this really terrible plastic thing that chips up and breaks way too easily. It's a bad camera through and through. I know I get a lot of grief when I hate on the Prakticas, but I just think there's better systems out there. So it's either between F or overhated, and I'm just gonna keep it in F because I just think it's a really bad system. The Voigtlander Bessematic, I'm going to put it in F as well. I don't think they're really great cameras. I don't really like systems like this too much. Mainly the shutter on these just have a tendency to fuse together in a way that is just impossible to break, either due to rust, oil, what have you. And overall, there's just better systems than things like this. There's a bunch of Zeiss Icon cameras that are similar to this. There's a bunch of different things that look very similar. I've just never really been a big fan myself, but I can definitely understand the appeal. There's a certain mechanical elegance to them, but there are just so many reliability concerns that I am very wary to say it's a good camera. So for that reason, it's going in the bad camera category. The Hasselblad 500CM, A-tier camera for sure, could be an S tier, but it also could be overrated. It's towing the line, so benefit of the doubt, I'm giving it the A tier. There are some concerns with the body, the mainspring, especially breaking. Put the back or the lens on and it's not timed properly, it could lock up the whole mechanism. That being said, it's very high quality lenses, very high quality system overall. Not the easiest thing to use, but fairly easy to use once you understand it. But they're very expensive and they're even more expensive to get repaired at times. So that's why it's kind of going the A tier. It's a great camera, but there are a few things keeping it from that S tier in my opinion. The Pentax ME Super, that's an S tier camera, very underrated still, compact, easy to use for beginners, great to use for experts or professionals or whatever. And despite the fact that I've talked about it a lot, promoted it a lot, the price still stays pretty low, easy to work on as well. S tier camera for sure. The Minolta Dynax 9000, I don't like the Minolta autofocus camera series. Reliability concerns, electronic concerns, the A series lenses are very limited, I feel like, and overall, there's just issues I find. There's other options as well in terms of autofocus SLR systems that we'll get to later in the list that I feel like are better than perform more than the Minolta series, so that's kind of why I downgrade them a bit. But I can also understand that people like them and they are usable, just not my personal preference. The Contax G2, overrated. A lot of electronic problems, very expensive for what it is. Nobody wants to fix them. Contax T3. I would put this in overrated, but because it's the T3, I'll just put it in the bad section here. It's an F tier camera for a lot of the same reasons as the G2, except it doesn't have the same hype as the T2, so T3. Price tag is way too steep for ostensibly a point and shoot camera that will break on you and will cost you the cost of the camera, if not more, to get serviced. Olympus OM2N, that's an S tier camera for a lot of the same reasons as the ME Super. Very compact, easy to use, great metering system, wide selection of lenses, looks good, a lot of fun. The EOS Elan 7E, I'm going to put an overhated. SR7, this one in my mind is a beautiful camera, one of the better looking Minolta cameras out there. Compact, small, mechanical, A tier, good stuff. Minolta Maxxum 9000 going in the same tier as the other autofocus Minolta system. Something about the advanced lever really throws me off. LCD screens are bleeding more notably, and it's just not a very good camera, in my humble opinion. You might like it, that's all good. Loma LCA, I'm going to say that's an A camera for a lot of the same reasons as the Holga. Affordable, accessible, not the best in terms of construction or quality, but it's also not that expensive, so it shouldn't really be too much of an issue. Also, it kind of looks cool. Olympus Trip 35, not a great camera. Shutter fuses up, selenium cell. A little bit bigger than I think a lot of people would want it to be. If we're talking about fixed lens rangefinder systems, I think the Canonette is just a much better option personally. Your mileage may vary on that. Just something about the Trip 35 series I've never really been a huge fan of. The Mamiya 7 I think is a little bit overrated. The fact that you can buy a car, maybe not a good car, but still a car for like the same amount as you could buy a Mamiya 7 is a little bit insane to me. And as like nice of a camera as it may be, I don't know. I have a hard time with that one. A lot of people really love them. Maybe I'd feel different if I had one, but I don't. Overrated, I guess. It's probably a good camera, but I just, it's so much money. So anyway, Konica C35, going right with the Olympus Trip for a lot of the same reasons. The lens, the optics are sharp, but it's a very big lens. It's a big camera. It kind of would rather have an SLR with the amount of footprint that the C35 takes up. The advance on the C35 feels very springy and light, and the camera itself feels kind of hollow. The Olympus XA I feel like is an A tier camera, borderline S tier. Back-to-back Olympus, it's going in the S tier. I think the Olympus XA is just super fun, really sharp optics, very interesting clamshell design, adorable, it's tiny, easy to use. Fuji Freedom Zoom, this is going to go in the overhated, another kind of blanket category here for any kind of point and shoot camera system that doesn't have the same name recognition value as some of the other ones out there. I think this is one of those instances where if you have a camera that works and you can take photos with it, that should be good enough. Obviously, you're not going to have all of the same controls as you could with an SLR system or rangefinder, but for all intents and purposes, you're out taking photos. Hopefully you're having fun. Hopefully this camera didn't cost you too much money. And for that, I feel like it gets a little bit too much hate because it's a fun thing at the end of the day. Pentax K1000, this is going to pain me, but I'm going to put it in the overrated category for a lot of the same reasons as other things in this category. It's a great camera, it delivers, but for how much it's costing nowadays, I don't think it's that good. There are other systems out there such as the Pentax KM, the Canon FTB, the Minolta SRT series, the Nichromat series, any of these cameras that provide all of the same functionality, mechanical stuff as the Pentax K1000, but for a fraction of the price. It just so happens that the K1000 is much more famous or well regarded so that jacks the price up, and I think that makes it a little bit overrated. Still a fantastic camera. I absolutely love it, but overrated. Large format camera. This one looks cool. The Ricoh Diacord. I'll put it in A. I don't really like these too much because the Advance isn't synchronized with the shutter charging system, but that's really a me thing. That's not even really worth complaining about. I think once you get used to that system, it doesn't really phase you one way or another. It makes it easier to do double exposures on it, all sorts of other things. It's maybe a more affordable option than some of the Rolleiflexes, Rolleicords, Yashica mats. And hey, it looks cool. All of these kind of look cool to me. Pentax 645N. This is an A tier camera for sure, borderline S tier. One of the better of the 645 box cameras, in my opinion. Wide range of optics, as well as some autofocus options as well. If you can find those lenses, they are expensive, but they are out there. So it's a great option for studio work. It's a great option for landscapes. It really is a great camera. Very electronic, but the electronics are good. And overall, very nice look to it. The Canon Canonet QL17. That's an A-tier camera. Very compact as well, well built. And for all the reasons I don't really like the other fixed lens rangefinders, the optics on this are very sharp. They're fast. It's a small body, so it's not going to be taking up too much room. It's easier to pack with you. They're great. I really do like them quite a bit. The Leica M6, that's going to be overrated because I think it's a good camera. I would even venture to say it's a great camera, but I think the cost alone is very, very steep. And I don't think that it is that much better than any other camera out there. I mean, even a Leica M5, granted it doesn't have the same look as the M6, but a Leica M5 can use all the same lenses, has a lot of the same internal components to it, and it's like a fraction of the cost. So for that reason, I'm going to say the M6 is a little bit overrated. I don't think that the Leica badge gives you any sort of substantial boost in your ability to take good photos. Obviously, using better tools will empower you in different ways, but I don't think it's like that drastic, at least enough to rationalize that cost. This large format camera looks really cool. The bellows, or whatever they are called, are red. That's nice. The Lomo LCA120, that's a bad camera. And I'll tell you why it's a bad camera, because at first I thought, oh, an LCA that shoots 120, that's kind of cool. Then I looked into it a little bit more. Turns out they're like $500. And on top of that, they're like plastic and shitty. It's like a Holga for literally like 500 times the price. So I don't really know. And yeah, there's the look. The LCA looks kind of cool. This looks kind of cool. But honestly, does it? It looks like a just stretched out version of the LCA. Like somebody put it through one of those taffy machines that just stretches it out a little bit. It kind of looks a little dorky. I think the Holga is a better looking system. I think it's much more affordable, much more accessible. The LCA 120, not very good in my humble opinion. Nikonos 3, that's an S tier camera. I had, I think, 3 or 4 people say that this was their favorite camera of the year. It looks good. The Nikonos system is great if you're doing any kind of underwater photography, any kind of like extreme weather photography. The lenses are super fun. Using the camera is super satisfying. I think they're great. S tier for that reason. This large format looks like it's more portable. That's pretty cool. It's going in the large format category. The Pentax 6.7. Now, a couple of years ago, I would have put this in the overrated category. It would have fit in there perfectly because it was, you know, on that hype trend of the internet. Like the Pentax 6.7 was solving all of the world's problems. World hunger, the Middle East, poverty, homelessness, everything was being solved by the Pentax 6.7. But now it's kind of gone back to it just being a very humble, very good camera for not a lot of money. So for that, I'm going to put it in the S tier, because I think you have a wide range of lenses to choose from. I think you have a lot of different accessories that fit with it. It's easy enough to use because it's just an inflated SLR system, and they're still fairly reasonable in price, and also, again, easy to fix. So S tier camera, borderline overrated, but also not, because I think it backs itself up quite nicely. The Pentax 17, that's going to go right there. I don't really think it's a great camera. I think it's cool that there's a new camera. It's great that there's a warranty, but unfortunately I don't think it's a very good camera. Then we have the Mamiya RB67 and is going to be going in A because I think it is a very good camera. They're very underrated, they're very affordable, a little bit harder to use than something like the 6.7, and they're fairly big and bulky, so harder to carry around with you. But I think they're really good, and if you have a good tripod, it's fantastic for any kind of studio work, landscape work, what have you. But it's just not quite S tier in my opinion. The Olympus OM1. Right in between A and S tier, because I think the OM2 is just a little bit better than the OM1. Yes, the OM1 is fully mechanical, which is fantastic. But I don't want to just have... the OM1 is also really affordable too. There's so many out there for not a lot of money. Okay, we'll put an S tier. We'll just put an S tier for now, just for fun. We'll just keep it there, keep it safe, keep it warm, get it out of the elements. It'll be an S tier. And honestly, if anything, I would move the OM2 down because I really don't like the OM2 ISO exposure compensation dial. But I'm gonna leave them both there. I think they're both really good cameras in their own right. The OM2 obviously has a lot more utility with its auto setting. The OM1 is obviously a bit more reliable with its mechanical shutter speeds. So they both belong there, in my opinion. The Nikon FM3A is a bad camera. It's going in the F tier. A lot of electronic issues that are coming up. I don't really like that the Nikon font is italicized like the modern one. I just think it looks kind of lame. They're incredibly expensive, and also the fact that it's called the FM3A as opposed to the FE3A kind of bothers me in a way that I can't really explain. But the Galvin meters on these things are going bad left, right, and center, and there's very few out there for parts. It can still be used in some of the mechanical settings, but for how much it costs and for how much it costs to get it serviced, I just think that the FM2N is a much, 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 much better camera. And even at that stage, I think that the F2 is a much, much, much better camera. The Rollei 35 is a good camera. They're a little bit more complicated, a little bit more confusing to use. If you get used to using them, then it makes more sense. It's not as good as the XA though. I think the XA is better, and I know it's kind of apples to oranges, but they're both very small, compact, full frame cameras. I'm gonna put the Rollei in F. It's right in between A and F, to be completely honest with you. It's a good camera, but it's not like a very, very good camera. The Zenit 12XP is another one of the Soviet cameras that's just gonna go in the F tier. These are not good cameras. They're fun to use, I'm sure, but they also will break and then they are just never going to work again. There's better, more affordable options out there, unless you wanna shoot with a Soviet system, then by all means, don't be surprised when it's not a very good camera. It will still take photos, I'm sure, but just get a Spotmatic or an SRT or a Nichromat. The next large format camera looks very cool, so it'll go there. The Rolleiflex is a very good camera as well. That'll go in A tier. Mamiya C220, I'm going to put that right up in A tier as well. Very good camera. The Nikon F100. This is a tricky one. Initially, I want to say like A tier. It's a good camera, but then I also remember the one time that I was shooting an F100 and it almost caught fire in my hands because the battery contact shorted out. So then I'm like F tier for sure, but then I think overhated, because I think that this kind of falls in line the same way as the Canon EOS autofocus SLR series does, where they're slept on. They're not, like, people don't appreciate the utility that they provide. You have access to the whole range of Nikon lenses and a compact, relatively compact, but professional looking, incredibly usable camera system. It's more affordable than the F5, than the F6, without really losing too much of the benefits of the F5 and the F6. It's a great camera. Yes, there is the battery issue, but if you can look past that, which I try to, I think it's definitely overhated. Finally, I have this large format system, which I recall as being called the Eastman 11x17, because I was like, that's big. That's a big thing. And you know what? It looks pretty cool. So it's gonna go right there in the large format category. This is the tier list based off of your guys' favorite cameras of 2024. What did you think? How offended were you by all of my picks? I think I did a pretty okay job of trying not to ruffle too many feathers. And if feathers were ruffled, I feel like it might have done an okay job explaining why for the ruffling. But if you think, man, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, you're completely correct about most of it. So just feel free to leave a comment down below and let me know what you think I got wrong, what you think I got right, or what you think you would have put on this list instead. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like it. If you didn't, you can also dislike it. I won't take it personally. Just subscribe to the channel so you can check out more of my videos, whether it's stuff like this, reviewing cameras, or going over weekly news videos. I kind of do it all here. So thank you very much for tuning in, for the support. Again, I hope you enjoyed the list. Shout out to everybody who submitted something. I really appreciate that as well. You obviously made this possible. I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone's favorite camera to use in 2025 was. So thank you again for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.